Many, many years ago, Lillian met Patrick for the first time. She was sitting in the yard, basking in the sun as a group of women peeked at her from the kitchen window, curious to see how she would react when Patrick arrived. Her mother-in-law, Rachel, was also hiding and watching her from the window. As time went by, the crackling firewood was heard in the stove until a heart-wrenching cry of "husband" finally broke out. Everyone watched as Lillian pounced towards the man entering the yard. Horrified, the man tried to push Lillian away, but was careful because she was pregnant, and did not dare to resist her embrace. Seeing a man strikingly similar to her son, Rachel, who was prone to illnesses, was so shocked that she fainted. That year, Lillian was 20 years old. She got married in the spring and became a widow in the autumn. Her husband, Jack, unfortunately ended up buried in a collapsed mine. She clutched the compensation she received for her dead husband, unsure of what to do next. She lived in a daze, with little food and sleep. Her stomach swelled as her body became thinner and thinner. Rachel's health worsened after the ordeal, holding on by a thread. Waiting for Lillian to give birth, she learned that there was a man who looked remarkably like her son, and that man was Patrick. Lillian and Jack were married off at a suitable age. Given that Jack was rarely home after their marriage, the couple was not very close. However, when the news of his demise arrived, she felt as if the sky had collapsed. She refused to believe that Jack was dead. She felt that he should be back before the birth of their child. Or return years later, a little weathered was alright, as long as he was back, opening the yard door, and smiling at her, just like Patrick. Rachel assured Lillian after waking up, "I just saw Jack and his dad. They're coming to fetch me." "Lillian, Patrick is poor, but honest and has no wife at 30. He isn't bothered by the child and is willing to marry you. I beg you to leave a descendant for our family. I'll bless you below to have peace and joy." After that, Rachel was bedridden. Patrick started coming to the house, brought by different relatives, helping out in the house. The neighbors' intentions were clear to Lillian. Since she was going to have the baby, it would be important for the child to have a father. For a while, Lillian had not spoken to Patrick, only silently observing him. Wherever he went, her gaze would follow. When he was out of sight, she would get lost in thoughts about Jack. Over time, the visitors reduced, and only Patrick came to help with the chores, looking after Rachel and her. When he was there, Lillian was uncomfortable. As soon as he left, she would feel a sense of melancholy, eager for his return. One day, he finally settled in their house. One day, while they were taking a walk in the yard, her water broke. Patrick calmly placed bedding on the tricycle, made her lie on it, and rode her to the hospital in town. The doctors in the town were not very skilled. They left an ugly scar from the surgery, for which he would always blame himself. Rachel passed away peacefully when their daughter was 6 months old. They got their certificates when the child was 3 years old. Patrick was 10 years older than Lillian. He came to support her all on his own, rare for a man to marry into the woman's family. People had a lot to talk about. They moved to the next town for some tranquility. Back then, trucks carrying coal and goods were continually passing by, so they opened a small stir-fry restaurant. One cooked, the other greeted customers. They made a good sum of money, bought a small piece of land, built a 2-story building. Their lives transformed immensely. But Lillian never believed that Patrick genuinely wanted to marry her. She saw him more as a benefactor than a husband. They were amiable in the daytime for making a living. At night, they lay on the same bed. He gently nudged her, and she understood. Without a word, the two fulfilled their marital duties in silence. In such nights, desires were satiated, but souls tended to wander away. Often, Lillian would think about what it would have been like if Jack were still here, or what other couples were like. On the weekend, they were to send their 10-year-old daughter, Maggie, to the city to participate in a competition exam. Early in the morning, Patrick made a noodle soup, adding soybean paste, fried tofu, cabbage, and eggs. He also steamed some pork buns, in case Lillian would get hungry while waiting for their daughter to finish her exam. The weather forecast warned of a cold wave. Just the night before, they were sweating after having a hot soup, but after a shower in the night, it felt like winter. Lillian, watching the time, was afraid they would be delayed, wanted to hurry, but Patrick insisted on fetching their coats from upstairs, which caused a bit of a rush. They rode a motorbike, under the clouded sky, with few people around. Their daughter complained about her face hurting. Lillian rubbed her palms warm and applied them on her daughter's cheeks. Maggie had the same thick eyebrows, broad chin, and sparkling eyes like her father Jack. Anyone who didn't know better would say she looked like her father, Patrick. Just before entering the exam hall, Their little grown-up daughter reminded them, "Dad, Mom, my friend said there's a cinema nearby. You guys can watch a movie, instead of standing out here in the cold, or else I'll worry during the exam." The chill was severe. After standing for a while, Lillian could not bear it. Patrick asked someone, and they walked to the cinema to shelter from the cold. But they didn't buy tickets to watch a movie. How could they, as their minds were on their child? Lillian sat down, took out a pork bun, and started eating. That day, they encountered a couple who came to watch a movie, aged in their 30s or 40s, like them. Lillian guessed they were lovers. A regular couple should be busy with their household or children at this time, just like them. Among the people they knew, very few indulged in such fashionable entertainment. Most families would gather around the television, switching channels as soon as intimate scenes came on. As for movies, they were continually broadcasted on movie channels, but due to household chores, Lillian seldom watched a complete movie. But isn't life supposed to be ordinary and straightforward? That's how everyone lives. Before the movie began, the lovers spoke softly, laughing in sweet voices, and eventually started kissing. Lillian listened, feeling her face turning red. Patrick was also uncomfortable. But neither of them suggested leaving the cinema. Besides waiting for their daughter, what else could they do? Finally, the lovers quieted down. Lillian was sweating from the anxiety, her back was hot and itchy, and she was uncomfortable as her thick clothes made it impossible to scratch. Before she could say anything, Patrick reached in, scratching her back through a layer of clothing. After a while, he asked, "Still itching?" She quickly stood up and said, "It's fine, let's leave." Patrick agreed, "Right, let's find a market nearby, buy some lamb to make a soup, which will keep us warm." As they walked out talking casually, they both breathed a sigh of relief. It was 11 o'clock, and their daughter would finish her exam in 40 minutes. Lillian hurried, but Patrick told her not to worry. He said life needed to be taken slowly. They asked an old man carrying vegetables for directions and hurried toward the market. Even after many years, Lillian remembered that day, a plastic bag swinging on the handle of the motorbike, filled with lamb, rustling in the wind. She looked at her husband's receding figure in the breeze, pondering the unusual experience in the cinema that day, and a mild warmth occupied her heart. As their lamb soup included nourishing herbs like angelica, astragalus, and red dates, they were unable to sleep due to the heat. They tossed and turned all night. Since their daughter turned 7, Lillian had her IUD removed, wanting to have a child for Patrick. But Lillian never got pregnant again. She had heard a saying, some women were like banana trees. A banana tree bears fruit only once, and after the fruit is harvested, the tree must be cut down, leaving a stump, only then can it bear fruit again the next year. She was like a banana tree that could not be cut. She worried that she could not bear another child and that Patrick, without a biological child, would feel out of place in this family and might leave them one day. At that time, their township was developing. Streets were being beautified, trucks were redirected to new highways, passenger flow sharply decreased, so their family switched to running an oil shop. They bought peanuts, hired people to pick out the rotten and moldy ones, which then went into the machine for roasting and pressing oil. Picking peanuts was a job paid by the day, and many familiar women from the nearby area rushed to work, including a recently divorced young woman. Not long after she came, Lillian heard from the other women that this woman was openly flirting with Patrick in public, complimenting Patrick's good looks and character, and saying Lillian was lucky, but her luck was bad, like a fat seed falling into hard land. The woman also asked others to introduce her to someone, but the man had to be as good as Patrick. Lillian thought the woman was shameless and wanted to dismiss her. But she was dexterous and sharp-eyed, and she was fast and good at picking out peanuts. When Lillian was around, she behaved decently, giving Lillian no reason to dismiss her. She only occasionally came out from behind to check on things. Whenever she saw them talking and laughing, it was like her heart was a chestnut roasting in the coals. Then, the woman didn't come for a few days, and the same days Patrick was away buying peanuts, which raised Lillian's suspicion. As expected, when Patrick came back, the woman also returned. That day, laborers were lining bags of peanuts inside the shop, and Patrick was resting upstairs. While checking the goods, Lillian heard the woman talk about going to see a movie with a man. People laughed at her being in love, and she agreed, saying that the movie was great. Lillian felt a bite in her heart and asked Patrick what movie was playing in the cinema recently. To her surprise, he knew, and the movie's title was exactly the same as the one the woman and her boyfriend had seen. That night, Lillian nudged Patrick. He gave her a peck on the lips and went to sleep back turned to her, saying he was too tired these days. Lillian believed that when a wife has desire, and the husband doesn't, it's because he's been satisfied elsewhere. The woman was like a spring willow, soft and flirtatious, swaggering in front of her every day. But she was bitter for not having evidence. A few months went by, and the woman's rosy face turned waxy pale. An older woman asked her if she was pregnant. At that moment, Patrick was also there and paused. The woman shyly looked at Patrick and said yes, waiting for him to take her in. Lillian was outraged. For the sake of face, she didn't explode on the spot, resulting in her burning a pot of perfectly good peanuts. It was not yet dark, and Patrick had disappeared. The customers had ordered oil, so she was busy roasting the next pot, putting the hot peanuts into nylon bags. As the bags were burnt through, she had to shovel the peanuts into a bucket and take them out to throw away, which left her sweating profusely. As she was carrying the empty buckets home, Patrick came back with fruits. The other women had gone home to cook, but that woman didn't leave. She was at the shop's entrance, tugging and whining at Patrick. Lillian was so angry that her mind went blank. She rolled up her sleeves and forcefully slapped the woman. Patrick moved aside to dodge the slap, closing the door and asking Lillian not to make a scene. But Lillian scoffed, thinking this event needed fireworks, making everyone aware of what was going on. To commemorate that he married her, who was pregnant then, he finally put someone else in the family way, 10 years later, becoming a father for the first time. As soon as the door closed, the woman, not minding Lillian, clung to Patrick anxiously, crying out, "I must see him. I must see him. You have to help me, I must see him." Patrick was so anxious that he stomped his feet, but I've known him for so many years, and he's always been single. How can this be? What did he say? He's been avoiding me lately. I just called him and told him I was pregnant. He asked me to leave and never to see him again. I demanded an explanation, otherwise, I will take it to his home. Lillian was in a daze, but she still managed to understand. She advised them to go the back room to talk, in case anyone heard them. It turned out that Patrick had a friend whom he'd visit for tea every time he went to the goods platform. During casual chats, he asked Patrick to introduce a woman to him. Patrick thought of the woman picking peanuts in their shop and asked him if he minded a divorcee. The friend said he didn't. Unexpectedly, the man was married. He wanted the woman to abort the baby, but she refused, hoping to get married and have a home. The man turned against her. He said that the woman had crossed his boundaries, that he was just playing along and didn't expect more. It wasn't his wrongdoing that the woman was divorced, and he couldn't divorce either. He warned her not to overstep, daring her to make trouble in front of his wife. Seeing the woman's state, Lillian felt pity. She asked Patrick for a solution, but he was also clueless. The man refused to even pay for the abortion. Patrick discussed with Lillian, suggesting that maybe they could bear that cost. Lillian angrily twisted her husband's arm. "You had nothing to do with it, why touch the mess? When the rumors come, can you clear things up? We've finally lived a few peaceful years. You, a grown man, why rush to play the matchmaker?" Sigh, I didn't expect this either. He is straightforward in dealings, and I thought he was a good man. Pa, men all look good to their friends, and they differ with women, and differ even more to those inside and outside their homes. He reaped the advantages, and you ate the shit. And you still speak of friendship. We cannot let this go. The couple spent the night brainstorming. The next day, after sending their daughter to school, they took the woman, had Patrick arrange a meeting with the man to negotiate. Lillian furiously scolded the man until he was ashamed. Eventually, out of fear that his wife would learn about this, the man gave 5,000 yuan as compensation. Afterward, Lillian accompanied the woman to the hospital for the abortion, took care of her during the recuperation period, cooked soup for her daily, and visited her. Patrick felt guilty and touched, thus taking up all the house chores. After this incident, Lillian demanded Patrick never to hide anything from her. Patrick hesitated, asking if the past secrets counted. Lillian nearly spat out laughing, showing great magnanimity on her face. "All these years, you've been very good to me and our child, caring and thoughtful. As they say, a couple must be united to live a lifetime together. Whatever you kept from me in the past doesn't matter. But today, we need to lay everything out, and from now on, we must be wholehearted." Patrick gritted his teeth and revealed his deepest secret. "I know you really want another child, so do I, but, I am infertile." Lillian's mouth opened to the size of an egg. After years of struggle, the answer was so simple. Patting her husband's hair peppered with gray, she comforted him, "It's okay. As long as we love each other, that's enough. Kids will grow up and leave, but you're the one who'll always be with me." They finally embraced each other, open-hearted and touched. Just like many years ago, when she sincerely hoped that Jack would live to an old age, she now sincerely hoped to have a steady life with Patrick, each accompanying the other in their remaining years. She knew he had the same wish, and that was enough. As long as they lived a steady life, even a partnership in the midpoint of life would develop a deep bond. After that, they never argued or blushed. Time flew, their daughter Maggie got married, and Lillian became a grandmother. Their 3-year-old grandson was active and always in a hurry. Every time Patrick advised him gently, "Slow down, my sweet grandson, life must be taken slowly," Lillian would remember those years when the warm Patrick was slowly accepted by her who'd lost her husband, how she slowly fell in love with him, and how they lived so many years together, slowly. She loved that kind of slow. A couple is shared by a bed and a pillow, a dawn and a dusk, a meal and a porridge, a lifetime. How can it be fast? It's supposed to be slow.